In this video, we're going to look at the trigonometric values at the quadrantal angles. So our quadrantal angles are angles that have terminal sides that land on the x or y axes. So the first quadrantal angle is 0 degrees, which is equivalent also to 360 degrees. 0 and 360 are coterminal angles. And we could say 0 radians or 2 pi radians. And what we want to notice is that on the unit circle we have an x-coordinate of 1 and a y-coordinate of 0. And really we just go through and apply the definitions that we've already developed. So we say, hey, the cosine of 0 degrees, which is also the cosine of 360 degrees, is just going to be the x-coordinate if you are on the unit circle. So we want to remember, on the unit circle, the x and the y coordinates are just given by the cosine of theta and the sine of theta. We could use the definition, which is x over r, but because r is equal to 1, x over r reduces to just x. And then the reciprocal of the cosine is the secant. So the secant of 0 degrees or 0 radians is the reciprocal of 1, which is still 1. The sine function, so the sine of 0 degrees or 0 radians, is going to be the y-coordinate, which is 0. And so here's where we run into our first issue. The cosecant is defined to be the reciprocal of the sine function. However, the reciprocal here would be 1 over 0, which would be undefined. So the cosecant does not exist at 0 degrees. It's undefined. And then we can look at the tangent function at 0 degrees. So the tangent function is defined to be the y over the x coordinate. So in this case, the y coordinate would be 0, so we would get 0 over 1, which is just 0. But now if we try to calculate cotangent, so cotangent of 0 degrees, we would get the reciprocal of the tangent function. We would get 1 over 0, which is undefined. So the cotangent and the cosecant at 0 degrees are both angles that are undefined. So the next quadrantal angle that we could talk about would have initial side starting on the positive x-axis, terminal side ending on the positive y-axis. So this would be a 90 degree or pi over 2 radian angle. And we want to pay attention to the x and the y coordinates. So here x is 0, y is 1. So the cosine of 90 degrees or pi over 2 radians is just going to be the x coordinate, which is 0. The secant function, so the secant of 90 degrees would be the reciprocal of 0, but that would be 1 over 0, and division by 0 is undefined, so the secant at 90 degrees is undefined. And then the sine function at 90 degrees is just going to be the y coordinate. And the cosecant function at 90 degrees is the reciprocal of 1, which is 1. And the tangent function, the tangent of 90 degrees, we're going to run into an issue here also because it's the y-coordinate over the x-coordinate by definition, but this would be undefined because of the division by 0, so undefined. And the cotangent function is going to be in good shape because the cotangent function is the reciprocal of the tangent function. So if the tangent function wanted to be 1 over 0, the cotangent is going to want to be 0 over 1, which does equal 0. So it's well defined. The next quadrantal angle would be the angle 180 degrees with initial side on the positive x-axis, terminal side on the negative x-axis. So 180 degrees, which is equivalent to pi radians, is the next quadrantal angle. The ordered pair here is -1, 0. So the cosine function, so the cosine of 180 degrees or pi radians is just going to equal the x-coordinate. The reciprocal of -1 is still -1, so the secant, the reciprocal function for the cosine function, is also going to equal -1. The sine of 180 degrees is just going to be the y-coordinate, and then we're going to run into the problem again with the cosecant. The reciprocal function isn't going to exist. It's going to be undefined. That doesn't fit so well there. It is undefined because the reciprocal of 0 would be 1 over 0, which would have division by 0, which is undefined. So the cosecant doesn't exist at 180 degrees. The tangent of 180 degrees would be equal to the y-coordinate divided by the x-coordinate, which is just 0, which means that the cotangent, the reciprocal function, is not going to exist because the reciprocal of 0 is 1 over 0, which is undefined. So cotangent doesn't exist at 180 degrees. And the last basic quadrantal angle is start with the initial side on the positive x-axis, terminal side on the negative y-axis, and the ordered pair on the unit circle at that point is going to be x is 0, y is negative 1, and this is a 90 degree times 3 is 270 degree angle, or 3 pi over 2 radians. So the cosine of 270 degrees is just going to be the x-coordinate, which means that the reciprocal function, the secant of 270, is going to be undefined because the reciprocal of 0 is 1 over 0, which is undefined. The sine function at 270 degrees is just going to be the y-coordinate. The reciprocal, which is negative 1, the reciprocal of negative 1, which is going to be the cosecant of 270 degrees, is also negative 1. And the tangent of 270 degrees is going to run into trouble because it's supposed to be the y-coordinate divided by the x-coordinate, which is undefined. And finally, the cotangent function at 270 degrees is going to be in good shape because the reciprocal of negative 1 over 0 is 0 over negative 1, which equals 0, which is well defined.